Hello and welcome to episode 70 of Crackle Comics Weekly Reviews, which incidentally, as we discussed this week, our final episode of Crackle Comics Weekly Reviews. And we'll explain that at the end of the show, but I'm Mike, joined alongside by, for the final time,
Dan.
And Vincent.
So, you know what? We didn't fuck it up. I'm so happy. Would have been real bad for the final episode.
Yeah,
but we do have a number of books. We're going to operate until we get to the end like it's a normal week. Thankfully, not a huge week of books. I think we only had like 12 or 13 this week. But Dan, you want to kick us off with the Superman anthology books, Superman Red and Blue?
Yeah, sure. So our first book here is Superman Red and Blue, number 4. We have 5 stories here in this book. The first one here is titled Name Repus, written by Mark Waid, art by Audrey Mock, and colors by Jordi Belair. So essentially, I went ahead and made one sentence synopses for all of these. So essentially, in this issue, or in this story, we have Superman helping Mr. Mxyzptlk, I think that's how you pronounce it, and Miss Gispa. Oh my god, I don't even know how to pronounce that. I love how the last episode I have to get like the worst pronunciations. I feel like it's only appropriate. But basically, Superman shows up and trolls him the whole time and gets him to say his name backwards. Oh, and that's what the name of the title of this story is. Wow, I just put 2 and 2 together. It's been a long week. I apologize. Anyways, our next story is written and drawn by Francis Manapul, and it's called Prospect of Tomorrow. Basically, Superman travels to a faraway world and discovers Bizarro with the help of a robot creature named Wally. Not really Wally, but I pretty much looks like Wally, so whatever. Next story here is titled A Little is a Lot, written by Robert Venditti, art by Althea Martinez, and colors by Emilio Lopez. Clark recalls a heartfelt conversation with his dad as he saves people in present day. Apparently, Clark Kent's dad was very generous about donating hay to people. I think that's basically what the story was, something like that. I don't really remember, whatever. 4th story is For the Man Who Has Nothing. That is the title. Written by Michael W. Conrad. Colors by Cully Hammer. And Bizarro imagines all the JLA making fun of him on his birthday, which is actually really cruel. Like, we see all of them laughing, and he's very sad about it. As soon as he kind of walks out and gets out of this trance, we see the real Superman show up and give him a cupcake for his birthday, which is very cute. So that's really a heartfelt story. And the last one, probably the most cringe of all the stories, is called #Saved by Superman, written by Rich Dueck. Arts. Wow. Artist is Joe Quinones. Superman convinces an influencer to quit throwing himself off the Daily Planet building in order to get the likes and subscribers. So, yeah, that one definitely, I feel like that plotline has been overused in the past, and it's overused again here. I would say in terms of story, I thought the one that seemed to like interest me the most was probably For the Man Who Has Nothing, with Bizarro's birthday. I thought that was kind of cute. In terms of art, I do like Prospect of Tomorrow. I like the deep like red. That one had a lot of black involved though, so I don't recall this book being called Superman Red, Blue, and Black. But I guess that's a slight nitpick. But other than that, kind of neat addition here. Very light-hearted stories. What did my co-host think of this?
Well, first, for the record, I want to correct some of Dan's dyslexia. No offense. I don't know if he has dyslexia, but
I don't.
Some of this is more a transcription thing. So it's Cully Hamner, not Hammer, and it's Aletha Martinez, not Althea. I think that was it. I'm not sure how to pronounce Rich Dueck's name. And honestly, I could have pronounced Aletha's name wrong. Aletha, I'm not sure. But he spelled it wrong.
I was sabotaged the synopsis.
But I thought the stories were, I mean, these were fun. None of these were like my top of the rank and across the whole series. The Manipul one almost does feel like it's slightly cheating on the colors, but I don't think it is. But what's also interesting is like this pretty much looks like Francis Manipul. Like you could, like if he did like a random fill-in issue on Superman, like you could totally imagine him just going this route anyways. That was kind of my thought. I was kind of iffy on the Coley Hamner art, even though like typically I kind of like him as an artist. And none of these really like massively stood out to me otherwise.
Yeah, I think this was a weak issue overall. Nothing jumped out at me, went, oh, that's really good, or that's the best story here. It was interesting for me to see Wade coming back to Superman. This is now his second story using Superman. DC, the first being that story we got during the last 52 or something during Death Metal, which was Francis Manipul drawing. So interesting use of him using Mixie. I just wouldn't have thought Wade is a Mixie fan, but interesting to see how he wrote Mixie. Still very much in the same vein of what you'd expect from that character. I'll echo what Dan said. The hashtag Saved by Superman story, I didn't think it was inherently bad. It just feels like the third time I've seen a story in this book of someone bugs Superman to save them, and Superman's like, hey, I like what you're doing, but also like, look up here. I got all this to protect. So maybe, spread the wealth, elsewhere, make that aware. That kind of deal. But the art's still good. I will say the Cully Hamner art, it didn't feel like Cully Hamner to me. That was the only difference from there. I wasn't as hot on it as I usually am because I'm also usually like his art. But overall, it was another issue. I think 2 more issues of this left, but maybe we'll talk about the series as a whole when it's done and collected. But I think for now, it's it's been steady. It's been good, but I still would say it's still not as been good as Batman was. But we'll go into Supergirl. Unless Vince, you look like you wanted to say one more thing about this book.
Yeah, just one final thing for our friend Dan, who's still inching his way towards knowing more and more about DC. So the second to last story, For the Man Who Has Nothing, the title of that is a play on For the Man Who Has Everything, which is a famous Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons Superman story from the 80s in an annual, where it's kind of like, how Bizarro is like in a trance here. In that story, there's like a alien plant that attaches to Superman and makes him hallucinate, and he has like a perfect dream, but other characters are like, like that's not reality, so we have to fix it for him. And it's like one of the best or it's credited as one of the best Superman stories. And so for Dan, if you don't have it already, I'm probably it's there's a lot of like weird like DC Universe by Alan Moore books, which those are decent grabs too, but usually this For the Man Who Has Everything is also included in a bit smaller and all Superman focused book called Superman Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, which is the other major Alan Moore Superman story. And both of those are like really classic Superman stuff. And now I'll talk. All right. As Dan does that, I'll talk about Supergirl.
Before I do that, also I just wanted to say there is a Justice League episode that's adapted from that, and it's also I think the only time Alan Moore ever praised an adaptation of his work.
Oh wow! Surprised he watched it.
Yeah.
We finally have Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow #1. Pretty clever subtitle. I forget what subtitle they used for the stupid Future State books. It was something, or no, I guess they just called it Superwoman. So this is Tom King and Bilquis Evely, colors by Matthew Lopez. So our focal point character here is this girl, and she's on some alien planet. Her father was killed by an agent of the King, and the guy who killed him is named Krem. And her name is Ruthie Mary Knoll, I think. There's like extra E's in her first and middle name. So that's just how I assume I'm going to pronounce it. She rides off to get vengeance on the guy. She tries to hire a bounty hunter who's kind of a jerk. And so it's kind of like he basically says like, yeah, oh, and the girl has Krem's sword, and so like she's been carrying the sword around. She offers the sword to this bounty hunter, like, "Hey, this sword's really valuable. Can you kill this guy for me?" And it seems like the bounty hunter is going to do it, but then as we learn later on, some revelations, he clearly was not. But thankfully, Supergirl is just sitting there in the bar as well with Crypto, and she's just turned 21, so she decided to fly. Even though the whole 21 thing isn't, like a Earth and specifically like a United States like law, she turned 21, so she decides to go to another alien planet and get drunk. And she, because this guy's being a jerk, he like slapped our character. Supergirl's like, "Hey, chill out," stops him. And then she basically is like, they're off. And then Ruthie tries to get Supergirl's help, but Supergirl just wants to go back home. Like she was just here for like a quick party thing. But the girl is very persistent. And suddenly the bounty hunter who killed her dad the bounty hunter and Krem who killed her dad show up, and it turns out they're actually allies, or they just become allies, and they start shooting arrows, which you'd think not a big deal. However, this is a planet under a red sun. So Supergirl's got like arrows in her chest. There's a really grisly panel where Crypto gets shot with an arrow like in the neck. And then Krem gets away. He steals Supergirl's ship. The art is very good here. Tom King writes a very angsty Supergirl. She's officially no longer a teenager, so it's like, should she really be this angsty? But granted, she's literally drunk or hungover. I'm pretty sure basically this entire issue, except for maybe the final sequence. And everyone else, like these aliens on this planet, they have this weird, like kind of annoying, like overwritten manner of speech. I'm intrigued. I'm not, obviously, I'm not sure if this will be the arc through the entire 12 issues or however long this is. Or if it's going to be like, Supergirl deals with this and then there's another thing. Maybe there's like a 3 acts kind of thing. Who knows? But it's pretty interesting. The art is fantastic. Like I said, I'm really a big fan of Bilquis Evely. We've read her before on a Detective Comics arc with Pete Tomasi and maybe 1 or 2 other things, probably a Batman Black and White and or Superman Red and Blue story. But I also know her. She did like a Shaft series with Dave Walker way back and some other things. She did some of the like Sandman reboot stuff. Big fan of her work, and I'm interested. Obviously she turned 21, so everyone when they turn 21 in the United States, you go drink. But I'm also kind of curious and especially Tom King, in the kind of thought balloons and stuff, is paralleling that obviously Supergirl, she lost her family as well. So knowing Tom King, like, is this series going to go in a direction where like Supergirl is like, she went to this planet to get drunk because she's like depressed or things like that. I mean, I don't want to like totally pigeonhole and like be an asshole, but you have to wonder if, how Tom King is going to take this and the character of Supergirl. Those are my thoughts.
The art's the standout. We kind of already knew that going in when we saw the pages teased on social media. Vince has already said that we're big fans of Bilquis Evely, and it's a breathtakingly beautiful book. I like the idea of her being on a different planet because she's going to, she's celebrating her 21st birthday. Obviously, she couldn't do that to maybe the full extent she'd want under Earth with the yellow sun. So there's that. But I think it was a really good book. It was a weird issue 1, though. I was left going, oh, that's it, but I was left wanting more. So with that, there's a lot of mystery to it. I don't think this will be the whole series, but this is only 1 of 8. This isn't the standard Tom King 12 issue kind of deal. So 4 issues less than that. But I am intrigued to see where it goes. I don't know where Dan went, but I'll lead us into Nightwing 81. So Nightwing 81 is Tom Taylor, Bruno Redondo, Adriano Lucas. It's the standard team that we've come to know. Part 4 of Leaping into the Light as Nightwing comes face to face with the new villain of Heartless that we've seen teased in the last couple issues. Beautiful fight between the two as Dick figures out he's definitely enhanced but not trained. It's like he says a line like he took the shortcut to getting superpowers to supervillainy. So he's got all the skills but none of the teachings of it. But he also has to protect all these kids and try to get them to this pier, as it's been like he's like swindled and it's scheduled to blow up. He thought they were getting to safety, but luckily Tim Drake Robin is there to work that angle and try to save them. But the pier does blow up and it catches on fire and they're all stranded there. So Nightwing has to send out like a desperate SOS call to the local kind of ships and seamen around to rescue the kids. So we get the whole point of like, the point of this is that Dick wants to believe in Bloodhaven, and can Bloodhaven be a place that can appeal to being saved and become a hopeful place, which I like because he's trying to do better, especially with his newfound fortune that we saw that he got it from Alfred. And this really gives the outlet of Tom Player to like just every boat that comes in to rescue the kids is like a different creator name. I think there's like the Jurgens, there's the Sealy in there. Those are just two creatives that have worked on the Rebirth era. So I think that was kind of a sly thing. It's not unlike things we've seen with different alleys and streets named after different creators in Gotham City. I like that that's carrying on spiritually to Bloodhaven in different ways here too. But after all this, Dick does pass out because he's still not 100% healed from that hand injury. Because remember, he got shot in the head all the way back when KG Beast took him out in the Tom King's Batman run. But ignoring Tim and Babs, he heads back out to find more information when he sees that Tony Zuko's daughter is the new mayor. And he's like, well, I guess I got to change this up from the top down. So he wants to pay her a visit. He gets knocked out again by a guard because he's not thinking clearly. He's already not working at 100%. But he wakes up and discovers, oh, he's unmasked, and Melinda Zuko isn't who she seems, and she tells him that she knows who he is and that her father is John Grayson and that she's his big brother because Melinda was actually raised by the Maronis. She's the stepdaughter of the Zuko. She wasn't raised by Tony Zuko. So, that's our big cliffhanger. Does Dick Grayson have a mystery sister? So, we'll see where it goes. We've trusted this team. I don't think that's a bad cliffhanger here. It's definitely a different direction to take the book. I'd still say right now the pacing still flawless, writing still flawless with the characterization, and then we've gloated about the art every issue. There's no difference there. So with that, I'll bring Vince in. What do you think of Nightwing 81?
Yeah, I thought it was really good. The first couple pages or so, as we wrap up the one plot line, I mean, well, really, it's still the whole issue, but like, I almost like come into this book now expecting like some really cool panels and like just some amazing art. So the first couple pages, it's like, all right, this is what we saw in the past couple issues and like kind of toned down. But then once we get into like this one page, it's like, it's not a double page splash, but they take both pages to show like 20 freaking panels of action, really great choreography. And then later on, we get some really cool like Nightwing like traversing like a building, all cascading across like a montage panels. We keep comparing to Hawkeye, which is kind of lazy, but like that's kind of it. And then the final thing, like I like Dick Grayson a lot, as a character and a lot of runs of his comics and everything. But I'm not like, I don't know. I mean, this is kind of hypocritical because in certain other scenarios, certain other characters, I'd probably be like yelling, but it doesn't seem that crazy to me, like, oh, Mystery Sister. So I'm kind of just going to roll with it for the moment.
Yeah, I think it's a fake out. I don't think it's a full sister thing, but I mean, it could be. It could be maybe Tom Taylor doing his own thing on the Teresa Parker thing. We know that, Tom Taylor's had his own connections to Spider-Man. Maybe he's doing a riff on that. Dan, welcome back. We were talking about Nightwing.
On that note, real quick before Dan, I'll just being my asshole self. We're lucky there's no issue of Amazing Spider-Man this week.
Yeah, no issue of Amazing Spider-Man this week.
Go ahead, Dan. Do you have thoughts on Nightwing?
Oh, I actually didn't read it. I'm sorry.
Wow. I'm happy this is the final show.
Do you have any thoughts on Supergirl? Did you read that one?
Yes, I did read Supergirl. Yeah, I love the art style. It's funny. I'm reading a lot of stuff with Supergirl right now. So,
really? What are you reading?
Panic in the Sky has her.
Sky, but that's not that Supergirl.
Oh yeah, that's
I can't wait till Dan finds out about Matrix Supergirl because he doesn't even know who that is.
Yeah, that'll unless it's explained in the book, that'll be a 10-minute segment on the show when we get to that. But we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Really, you didn't read Nightwing? I'm surprised.
Sorry.
It's really good.
I'm just surprised.
You get it. You can get it in trade.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, it'll be a highly sought after book. It's clearly it's the book from DC everyone's glowing over right now, and I think rightfully so. But second issue of Time After Time.
You mean Time Before Time?
Time.
I wish it was called Time After Time. Would have been a great tie-in to a Cyndi Lauper song. But anyways,
I think we made that joke the first time we talked about this book.
doesn't mean I can't say it the second time.
I'm just saying I think it's funny that we've done it twice.
Yes, it deserves it. Anyways, Time Before Time number 2, written by Declan Shalvey and Rory McConville. Art by Joe Palmer and colors by Chris O'Halloran. In 2010, we see Tetsuo, or Tat, I guess is his nickname. I don't know. He's retrieving a pill with his boss, Helgi, and who knows. Later on, in who knows what time, Tetsuo and the FBI agent that he crash landed with are stuck, and they're trying to figure out when they are, not where they are. The FBI agent handcuffs Tetsuo. Bad mistake there, as we find out later, but she does it so that he doesn't try to run away or do anything like that. Meanwhile, in 2141, Helgi is being debriefed on the FBI agent that went into the pod with Tetsuo and is now in who knows what time. Back with Tetsuo, him and the FBI agent are walking through a forest when they're attacked by these members of the Union, which were essentially people that went to war with the I forget what he works for. Who actually I wrote here, who actually clashed with the Syndicate back in 2093. So that kind of reveals what time they're in. So a little bit about 50 years behind where they currently live. In 2141, Helgi blackmails a cop to help him find out who the FBI agent is. And when we go back to 2093, which is where Tetsuo and the FBI agent are captured, we find out that they meet the head of the Union, which is Karina Jemison, who plans to extract every piece of information that she can get from them before killing them. So that is kind of where the story ends. This was an alright second issue. It kind of was a little bit intense in some parts, kind of escalates the story a little bit more. It was all right. I don't know. Vince, did you read the first issue? Okay. Did this one interest you at all?
Vince doesn't read comics, but for the sake of laziness, last episode, I'll keep us all here. I did read it. It was very good. I love the design of all these worlds and the different colors to distinguish the different timelines. One of the most creatively, different books that sets apart itself from any other book I feel that's on the shelves right now, just because of the inventive nature of it. And then I also want to point out DC had a tribute page for John Polion in their books this week, and this one had one just as well. So two very nice tributes in this book and DC's books this week as well. But I'll go into Radiant Black number 5. Which Radiant Black number 5, Kyle Higgins, Eduardo Fregato, and Marcelo Costa, and then colors by Natalia Marquez. So Marshall is convinced that Nathan isn't dead. There's a small glimpse of hope for him. He sees him breathing, getting put into an ambulance after getting a shot of adrenaline. He's told yeah, he's alive now, but he might not even make it to the hospital. And he's kind of going crazy because now he has the Radiant Black, the black hole orb deal. So he's conflicted of whether he goes to the hospital to figure out if his best friend's all right, or how he wants to handle, Radiant Red, who kind of caused all this. So I think eventually he goes to the hospital, sees him there for a second, and then immediately flies off for revenge on Radiant Red and tracks Radiant Red down. So we got a huge fight between them. And the orb then also tells him that this huge threat is coming, which he kind of ignores because he's just consumed by vengeance at this point. So just tossing each other through walls, real fun, just energetic fight stuff. But he knocks off Radiant Red's helmet, revealing it's a girl. And then boom, a boom tube opens up and a green and pink different Radiant characters pop in. And they're like, hey, there's this giant cataclysmic earth-shattering thing that's going to come, and we need to team up to stop it. So that's going to conclude the first arc. So we had a huge swerve that our main character is not going to be our hero. It's going to be the best friend who takes up the mantle 3 issues in. It's a hell of a swerve for such a new series, but in terms of, I've been a Kyle Higgins fan for a long time, and him getting to spin the wheels how he wants to with his own property. I thought he had a very good Nightwing run and a very good run on Power Rangers. And I think he's combining the best of both things, I feel, from those books and really making this his own. And then the art team on this has just been absolutely phenomenal throughout. Just really, really fun, inventive designs on all these characters. So I'm excited to see where this is going to go from here. But a very explosive first arc in just, the creative ways they're going to take this. And I can't wait to see how it goes. But from there, I'll go to Vince. We'll go to X-Men Corner.
Yeah, we had some responsibility switcheroo before the show. So I have both of our X-Men books, just 2 this week. Planet-Sized X-Men #1 by Jerry Duggan, Pepe Larraz. The X-Men are freaking colonizing Mars. There's all kinds of characters involved. Magneto's here, Hope, Proteus, Iceman, Vulcan, Quentin Quire, Storm, etc., etc. Very literal title of the issue. I really had no idea what this was coming into it. I just thought it was another excuse for a dumb, oversized, overpriced book. And obviously, throwing back to giant size, but it is a planet size. It's planet related. And this is picking up a bit from X of Swords because Arakko is now in the main Earth rather than Otherworld, joined back with Krakoa. And that doubled the mutant population, plus or minus. However, the Iraqi mutants are getting weird. Like they're trying to claim territory in Japan, and they're just kind of all jerks and want to fight each other and start wars. And the mutants just need more land in general. There's some Hellfire Club stuff going on where they need more territory. So that's why they're expanding to another planet. And we see it all get built together in flashback, basically. So there's some new mutant who's an Arakko guy, cuts himself to create an ocean. Storm molds the entire atmosphere to create weather. There's a big caterpillar dude, and he blows himself up and makes the soil rich and then reforms himself. I don't know. All these Arakko guys are really weird. And Arakko itself, the island, is moved entirely because of gates, teleportation, whatever, to Mars. So it's now re-separated from Krakoa, which I feel was kind of what the entire thing was trying to avoid. That was the whole point, is they wanted, the 2 islands wanted to be rejoined. But whatever. And there is a weird thing said where it's now there's a chain of islands, but across 2 planets. Then we get our Mpreg moment as Jamie Braddock bursts a second sword satellite for Mars out of his stomach, which is very weird, but in line with his wackiness. And at the end, I guess the Gala moves over to Mars, but maybe only the mutants. I'm not really sure, actually, 100% how this lines up with the rest of the Gala. Obviously, we didn't read every single Gala issue, and there's one more I'm about to talk about. This is certainly a new status quo. The X-Men, on Mars, it's not too crazy. Well, it is, but it's not super crazy. I mean, Magneto always had his asteroid M, but now Mars is colonized by mutants, which is pretty crazy. When eventually this all falls down, not sure how they'll wrap this up, how they put Arakko back in the box, if they even do. So it'll be interesting. Mike, do you have any comments on this, or should I just move through?
I found it a little bit hard to follow. There was a lot. There was just so much happening in this. And then with things I don't want to be the guy to be how do timelines line up? I mean, there's people that took the time and planned out every hour to the minute of how the Hellfire Gala works, and that's kind of cool. But at the same time, I thought this was supposed to take place after, but no, I think the books this week and next week are still part of the Hellfire Gala, so I guess this just happens adjacently. The big takeaway I took away from this was that Magneto colonized Mars, and that's the next thing for the X-Men to do. Planet-Sized X-Men, Planet-Sized book, completely, hand in hand. That makes sense. I mean, before we did this episode, you were trying to pressure Dan into reading this one thinking this would have been new reader friendly, and I'm almost happy he didn't, because this would have been entirely not new reader friendly. I feel like if you hadn't been reading the last couple X-Men adjacent things, like, this would have been very hard to follow. So I think a fresh start that we're looking for maybe if you're looking to jump into the X-Men books is going to be Jerry Duggan's X-Men #1 in a few weeks or months at this point. I don't know when it's coming out.
Yeah, I thought this was going to kind of be X-Men #0 just based on the creative team. I don't really think you need to have a ton of, base for it, but it's definitely not like a #1. But also, I mean, I don't really know, I don't know how much we'll actually see this moving forward. Well, I don't know how much I'll see it, but that's a different thing.
I feel like it's a setup for stuff in Sword.
Yeah, I'm sure Sword will touch on this a lot, but and maybe the main X-Men book, I'm not sure. I mean, obviously, I guess it's more just like another playground, like the Savage Land, like the Shi'ar and all that stuff. It's not like all the X-Men stories are going to be on Mars now.
Oh yeah,
but it'll be interesting to see how they actually use this going forward.
Yeah, it's another grand design idea, which this continuity, this iteration has done. It's cool to see. I'm wondering where it's going to go, but at the same time, at the end of the day, it just plays into like, wow, there's a lot of things happening in these X-Men books. But I'll let you talk about New Mutants, which I didn't. Eventually, I'll read all of this when it's collected, because I've just fallen too far behind on New Mutants. Yeah, number 19, Vidiala. Alex Lin's on art, which is not the regular artist. Obviously, usually it's Rod Reese. So now for the Gala from this perspective. First of all, I don't know how to say Gala. I don't know if it's Gala or Gala. I feel like I've heard both versions from smart people and people who would know the word. So if I've been saying the word wrong for like the past 5 episodes, too bad. You won't have to hear it anymore. But again, I'm teasing ahead of time. So Warlock has some fun moments here. Gabby, aka Honey Badger, aka whatever other name she has, is missing. And Danny and Wolfsbane, they're catching up because Wolfsbane has this whole thing, as we discussed in previous issues, where she had a child and like the child like died, I guess. I mean, all this is like an X Factor thing. It's really more up Mike's alley. But she's trying to figure out, like, how can I get my child back in this stupid status quo? And she asked Danny for help, and then Danny had like something else to do, whatever. So they're kind of catching up. And Raine, I don't know how her name, Rain, I don't know. She also isn't wearing a fancy schmancy outfit like everyone else is, as designed by Jumbo Carnation, which is pretty interesting. And I'm not sure if we saw her design, because she referenced that he did make an outfit for her. She's just not wearing it, I'm pretty sure. Or no, I'm getting confused. I'm thinking of the outfit that was made for Gabby, which she doesn't get the chance to wear either. So basically, there was no answer about her kid, so it's all messed up, and she's understandably upset and like kind of taking some of that out on Danny, since she wanted her to help her and she wasn't able to. And then there's like some jerkwad artist at the party, and he wants to use magic and Karma as his muses, and so they basically troll him. They mind control him, make him spill things on himself, and then make fun of him. And Warlock is acting a little weird because he's anxious about not feeling as close to Cypher, his best friend, going back to New Mutants, since Cypher got married to Bia in X of Swords. And Warpath kind of talks to Warlock and kind of explains to him like the nuances of friendship and family and love and all those things. And like, Cypher is really focused on his new wife right now because they've literally just got married. But even if that's all you see, I mean, he still cares for Warlock deeply. They're still like best friends. So Warpath Warlock, goes over and kind of connects with his best friend and his new wife, and things are going in a good direction. I think, and then this is where we end. I think Gabby was killed by the Shadow King here. For a second, I thought it was a suicide because there's a note at the end addressed to her sister / clone X-23 / Wolverine / Laura Kinney. But there's also some dumb, but it, again, like I said, I'm pretty sure she was killed or an accident due to the Shadow King. But there's also some dumb clone law, I believe, with the resurrection protocols.
So I'm not sure if she can be brought back, if there's a loophole, if they'll break that law for her, despite not breaking it for other characters. Who knows? But I don't know how that works, because Laura was resurrected, if I recall correctly. I think she died during the Vault stuff, and she's like clone / daughter. I don't know. This issue, I mean, it's very much tied to the party, but it is continuing plot lines from the ongoing New Mutants threads. So it's kind of in the middle, and it was all right. Rod Reese obviously is missed here, but I guess he can't, do the book every single month. And Mike didn't read this, so we can flow right on.
I'm sorry, I was coughing right before I went on there. Also, just found out that the Sixers won, so Game 7, here we come. Anyways, Flash number 771, written by Jeremy Adams, art by Kevin Maguire, Howard Porter, Bharat Pegmetsi, Brian Hitch, Max Raynor, Scott Collins, Tom Derenick, Fernando Passarin, Auclair Albert, and Brandon Peterson, with colors by Michael Atiyeh. So our story opens to Reverse Flash and the Legion of Doom standing over Superman's seemingly deceased body as it shoots out lightning. In the Speed Force lab, Ollie, Barry, and Mr. Terrific discover that Wally is in the Omniverse, and they act as his guide. Back in the Omniverse, Wally is inducted into the Legion of Doom, much to the chagrin of Lex Luthor. Superman comes alive and confronts Reverse Flash as Lex shows up and blows a hole in the spacecraft, sending Superman flying through it. Back at Speed Force Lab, they are trying to get Wally back, but he ends up going to 1832 instead. Then we get a montage of Wally jumping into like other people's bodies, as fast as and as often as the artists seem to change from page to page, which is a little disjointing in my opinion. The last body Wally goes into is Jai's, where he finds himself talking to Iray, who is also a speedster, and takes him to space and discovers all the other speedsters, I guess, falling out of midair in a cornfield. What is going on? I don't know. This was probably one of the worst issues to have me recap, but I do have some co-hosts who will be able to hopefully explain the many gaps that I've left behind. So without further ado, I will leave it to them to discuss. Sorry that I was coughing earlier too.
You don't care. It's the final episode, don't you?
My thing is that there's 10 whole artists on here, which I feel like when they have that many artists, they don't even break down pencils, inks, all that stuff. So
they didn't.
Yeah, so they just like slap them all in, and they're just like, well, we have this many artists, so like we'll just jam them all together. So I don't know how things split up. Like some of these guys, obviously a lot of these guys are like major DC guys, but some of them names I don't recognize. Some like maybe they're inkers or like doing assists, like not even full pages. Who knows? But actually, in my opinion, like it didn't seem really distracting to me. The thing is like, and we've seen this on basically all the other issues of the series so far, where they are using different artists for different sequences, because we have like the Barry and Mr. Terrific kind of segments, we have the Wally segments, and then we have all these crazy like alternate timeline and things. So some of these artists is just one page, and I definitely and honestly probably might have a different opinion on a different book on a different day, different character, etc. But like in this, I didn't really think it was a problem. I really enjoyed this issue, actually. The Super Friends stuff was really fun and ridiculous. And then I actually found the segments with Irie, like, as someone who, honestly, like, I haven't even, like, read a lot of that, especially specifically with Irie, which is, like, an era, mostly not collected whatsoever. But, like, just that, like, family aspect of the Flash, like, I was actually, like, I thought it was kind of hit an emotional chord for me. And then the final tease here, the final tease of last issue was the Super Friends, which is like, oh my God, that's going to be crazy and exciting. Final tease here, it's like, oh no. But like the tone that this book has been going so far and like seemingly really investing in Wally, I am kind of interested to see where this goes. Unlike, when DC for a couple years after was referencing it in different ways, like with Flash Forward, or like how Marvel keeps referencing, Secret Empire with Captain America. Like I'm kind of hopeful that we'll get an actually like interesting, maybe cathartic, and maybe like a fixing kind of thing here, because there's all kinds of things. Butterfly effect. Can he, fix what he did? Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, this is a really enjoyable issue just from the I think I've said that the one thing I was missing from the book is that family element. So we get Linda hops on the phone. She's talking to Barry. That was a fun moment. But the whole point of this journey started with Wally wanting to give up his powers. So, of course, then he finds out all the cool things that adventures he gets to do with his family, and his daughter still has her powers. Because I think there was a while where even Jay didn't have his. Jay had to give his up to Iris, but it's at least referenced that they both have powers here. So it's like the eye-opening moment. He's like, oh, that when we were I think for Vince, like you and I were waiting for it. Like, oh, here's the moment where it's like, okay, he's not gonna get rid of his powers. He's the Flash, and he's gonna come around to at the end of it. And this was it. So the final, I think this is going to conclude in the upcoming Flash annual. That'll be the big finale to this first arc. There's a lot of DC annuals coming out in the next 2 weeks, I think. But with this, I think the next part is, face your darkest moment. That'll be Heroes in Crisis. And that's one step forward in this kind of hero's journey angle this book is taking. But it's been the sleeper hit, like thinking not, the last couple of years, oh, Wally's going to be in the spotlight. How are they going to hurt me again? But this has been nothing but delivering and kind of writing the course of so many years of really just bad handling of one of my favorite characters. So I really can't wait to see what Jeremy Adams does when it looks like the book will become more of a Flash title with the kids out of this arc and reestablishing him into the DC universe. We've already seen it in some places like Justice League Last Ride. It's at least referenced that the Flash in that book is Wally. So it is kind of fun and exciting to see that how they're going to handle the Barry-Wally dynamic going forward, with Barry kind of taking this wider role as the Omniverse Flash, and Wally cementing himself back into the DC universe proper as the Justice League's Flash per se. It's exciting to see how this is going to happen. I'm excited to see what Jeremy Adams does, and this has been another very good issue for, I think, the sleeper hit book of the Infinite Frontier, I guess, status quo for me right now. So I'm just happy to see that, and I'm excited to see where it goes from here on out. But I'll go to the next issue in Catwoman, which Catwoman number 32. This is Ram V, Evan Cagle, Jordi Belair. The cover, though, is Robson Rocha and Daniel Henriquez and Alejandro Sanchez. This is a very static issue, honestly. This Father Valley character who's been tracking Catwoman the last few issues, kind of plaguing her through all of Ram V's run, I believe, is still trying to find out more about her. He's kidnapped one of the former people Selena worked with that did like thievery jobs with, to find out, and it's like a little bit more of like retconning. Here's things from her past, from Old Town, and we get stuff in Sicily. It's okay. Like, none of it was extremely exciting to me. The different art team on this issue, but the art was fine. But it's just not the most exciting issue. It's kind of a nothing issue almost. Like I said, the only time we see Catwoman is in flashback, and it's just set up for stuff to come. And once again, this is another book that's going to feed into an annual where it looks like there's going to be more payoff there. I wish there was more to say, but there's really not for this issue. It's just not an issue where a lot happens, other than here's some backstory on Selena Kyle that you might have not known before, and obviously we haven't because it's a new take on her. I believe Dan read this, but I don't think he's going to have much more to add.
I don't. It's really not much of anything, honestly. It's just, like you said, just a bunch of background on Selena Kyle, and I don't know. It was all right. It wasn't bad. It wasn't great. Just meh.
Yeah, it exists, I guess, would be the way to go. But Vince, You're going to talk about this big Doctor Doom wedding. Was this the finale of this?
I don't think it's the finale. It's only part 2 of the arc, according to the cover. This is where the wedding happens. So this is number 33 by Dan Slott, RB Silva, with Luca Maresca. Not sure how that art team splits up, as we're talking about in Flash. So Victorious is secretly Symkarian. I'm sure I knew that. I feel like I knew that from the Doctor Doom book we read. She's not native to Latveria, but Doom annexed Symkaria anyways. And to refresh, Symkaria is where Silver Sable's from. So I don't know. They're just having like a discussion about minor anxieties before the wedding, and still kind of in that weird situation where it's like it's a political wedding, so like they have this weird dynamic. And part of attending the wedding is a get out of jail free card from Doom. So the Fantastic Four are like, well, we're invited anyways, but also like we should go because then Doom can't like randomly get mad at us for this thing we did a while ago, like when Sue took off his mask for the whole world, which I think is a reference to Secret Wars by Hickman, if I recall correctly. And there's like references to what Johnny did and blah, blah, what Ben did and what Reed did, obviously. And then they're kind of like, but this doesn't line up at all, but they're like, Johnny, I don't think you're on Doom's bad card at all right now. So like, you're fine, but like, obviously you've got to go with the family. And Johnny's like, I just slept with his future bride. So Johnny tries to invite Skye as his date, which, as I'm about to explain, knowing where this goes further, that would have been a terrible idea. But she's going home. Who knows what she's actually doing? Who knows what Elijah's doing? I like this like love quadrangle, but I'm not sure where it goes from here. And they arrive, and Doom has 2 tigers as he meets them. And I was like, all right, it's kind of weird. Why does Dr. Doom have tigers? But then there's a freaking footnote in reference to this tiger being the exact same tiger that Doom used in Fantastic Four #5, his very first appearance, to like guard Sue while he took her hostage. And he's like, yeah, the tiger's real old now, but he's still got a bit of kick in him. And I'm like, wow, that's just like a weird footnote. Like that's just footnote to footnote. And I still respect it, but it's just very strange. Now, the wedding also is on Reed and Sue's anniversary. So Sue is like, Doom, why'd you do that? And he's like, I didn't even think of that. And of course, like I said, Johnny just slept with the bride. So he's trying to like sneak along and talk to her, clear the air. And she kind of catches him and is like, hey, we're not going to deal with this. Doom commands a lot of his anti-FF gadgets to be destroyed. Because he thinks he's going in a good direction. Reed's about to be his best man, et cetera, et cetera. Black Panther and Namor show up, obviously a long time Fantastic Four supporting characters and guest stars and stuff. And obviously Namor has history with Doom through supervillain team up and other things. And Black Panther and Namor, they're still uneasy toward each other. And that goes back basically to Hickman's whole run on Avengers. And at the altar, Zora opts to admit that she slept with Johnny. She says it right to Doom's face. And Johnny was about to try and admit it to his sister. But she takes care of it, which obviously makes Doom flip the heck out. And there was some kind of mass hypnosis behind the scenes just a second ago. So everyone is frozen. They can't move. And the guards of Latveria are about to kill everyone. To be continued. And it ends with, the thing saying, I told you. So it's kind of fun. Like this is kind of my take that I've mentioned on all these Fantastic Four issues since I've jumped back in. It's like kind of like disposable, like trash bubblegum comics, but I don't think that's necessarily wrong with Fantastic Four. I mean, this is kind of like, to some degree, it's supposed to be like the anchor point of Marvel. So it feels like kind of out of date, but like in a good way, unless you don't want that, and then you might hate it. But that's Fantastic Four. Pretty sure this whole wedding stuff continues on, and I'm not sure if the wedding itself will fully happen or if it'll be, a swerve like that X-Men issue with Kitty and Colossus. Who knows?
All right, you guys can decide amongst yourselves. It's the final book before the retro, but it is Venom. Who wants to do one final Venom tease?
Venom, Venom, Venom.
Thank you very much. It's it's the end of an era, and Venom 200 Donny Cates with Philip Kennedy Johnson on pages 40 through 50. Artists, we have Ryan Stegman, Kev Walker, Danilo Esperuth, Ron Lim, Giro Villanova, Gerardo Sandoval, Victor Nava, and John Dell. But yeah, the end of the era. Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman say goodbye to Eddie Brock and Venom. A run from them that dates all the way back to 2018 when this started, and went on to become, one of the most important books in the Marvel Universe, spitting out 2 massive crossover events, Absolute Carnage, and then kind of culminating with the King in Black event that took up much of 2020. But this issue acts essentially as an epilogue to that event. Eddie is still connected to the symbiote codex and is able to be multiple places at once, but all this energy and power considerably ages him up. So basically, he's an old man now, but he's ready to pass on the mantle. And he gives Dylan to Venom. It's kind of cool how he does it. He gives him as almost like a watchdog. So the symbiote just turns itself into a dog and just is walking by Dylan where he goes to school and stuff. It's pretty neat. But there is that point, because comic books, that you're going to reach that point, and Dylan's trying to stop some muggers from assaulting a woman, and then he gets hit by a stray bullet, and then the Venom symbiote's like, well, the only way to save you is to bond with you. So Dylan ends up getting the Venom symbiote, and he's going to be a new Venom for Earth. We see a moment with Flash Thompson where he kind of encounters other symbiotes. It reminds me a little bit of a Men in Black situation, but because all of these symbiotes were released, some of them are still hiding out on Earth. So there's some of them that are going to hunt them down. I know we're going to get a more cosmic Venom by Al Ewing. I think that's going to be Flash, and that set up some of the stuff for this. But concentrating on this, which is mostly, strictly what Donny Cates is writing, the setup, I guess, is that on Earth, Dylan's going to be the new host of Venom. It's the kind of the one symbiote that still has a personality left to it, since, Eddie controls them all, which led to this kind of sweet moment of just hey, you're Venom. No, we're Venom, because, he's his son. Venom is just a part of Eddie as Eddie was, and now it's a passing of the torch. And Vince, I told you this off air, but I think you still get a kick out of it. Donny Cates, of course, writing crossover at Image, very much a child of the 90s, growing up with Todd McFarlane comic books. Crossover opened with that great line of "Kids love chains" by Todd McFarlane. So what does he have Dylan do? Well, he switches out Venom's webs for chains because they look cool. And, after all, kids like chains. So I thought that was just a beautifully just organic moment that very much fits the kind of heavy metal atmosphere and energy of this run that Donny Cates had on the character. But yeah, an end of the era for this creative team. Ryan Stegman drew his ass off for these issues. Just it always looked great, whether it was in the event book or this book itself. One of my favorite runs, maybe the best Venom run, definitely my favorite of the ones I've read. It had its goofy moments, but it had its really good dramatic comedy, not comedy moments, character moments that grew the character and furthered the mythos and kind of streamlined it in a different way. For what it's worth, maybe worse long term, maybe ruined some things, but I think it was a very good run, and it was a run that I had a lot of fun with, and I know a lot of other people had a fun with. So I think with that, it's kind of fitting that this is for our final show, but also it's the end of their run, it's the end of our run, but we'll go into our final retro book, which I think is a real fun one. But Vince, take it away. You started the retro book segment. It was your idea. You're ending the weekly show with the retro book segment.
Yeah, we picked a big whopper for the big finale. You can, if you're watching the video, you can see the title doesn't even fit on one line, all the details we include. So this is Ghost Rider, Wolverine, Punisher, Hearts of Darkness. This is a big one-shot from December 1991, obviously from Marvel. This is written by Howard Mackey, art by John Romita Jr., inks by Klaus Janson, colors by John Wellington. And this is what it sounds like on the tin, plus or minus. So Blackheart is summoned by some weirdos, like some Satanist guys, and he just kills them all. And he's having an angsty moment and mad at his father. So he's going to corrupt a certain kind of person to bring down Mephisto. And Blackheart here is a relatively new character and co-created by John Romita Jr., only drawn by John Romita Jr. so far, to my knowledge. I kind of double-checked that. So he just appeared in a couple issues of Ann Nesenti's Daredevil before this. Danny Ketch is in this same town, and he's rooming with a woman and her daughter. And he sits down to dinner, and it turns out that Wolverine and Punisher are also guesting with this woman, but they're all in civvies, so they don't all fully recognize each other, or at least that's the impression. But Danny has met both of these characters already. He had a Marvel Comics Presents arc with Logan, and he guest appeared in some Punisher War Journal. And all three got notes inviting them here, and they all have like different things tempting them. Like the Punisher's like note is like, "Hey, I know where some of the people who killed your family," and the Punisher's like, "I already killed them all. That's not true." And Logan's is like, "I know your backstory," and Logan's like, "I don't care, but I'll still go anyways." And Danny's just like mumbo bumbo, because he's relatively short into his run. I think this might even be before like the Spirits of Vengeance, Midnight Suns, like the initial big crossover, or maybe just after it. So he's still relatively new, so he still has like mystery around his origin and everything, the whole Ghost Rider bit. And Blackheart's take is that all these three characters are anti-heroes, so please help me kill my dad. And they all say no, which is funny. So then he puts everyone in town into a trance, except the kid Lucy is immune to it somehow because her heart's not corrupted because she's really young. And Blackheart steals Danny's bike and kidnaps Lucy. So Danny busts open a window and steals kind of like a generic, not generic, but like he steals another motorcycle, not his like crazy, like Eastern style, really cool one. Really something more in line that Johnny would ride back in the day. And John Romita Jr. gives us a really gnarly transformation sequence. And that's something that's always been like really inconsistent with Ghost Rider, where like sometimes an artist is like, when he transforms, all of his skin burns off like wax. And sometimes it's like, click, now he's on fire. And he just like, his skin and his hair and everything just kind of disappears. More like just a character transformation like Billy Batson to Captain Marvel. And Blackheart's temptation for Logan, like I said, is figuring out his origin. And that's interesting because Weapon X was published around the same time in 1991. But obviously, even when that finishes releasing, that's all flashback. Logan doesn't remember all that. And they all end up in a hellscape, all just taking turns pummeling on Blackheart. And there's like these weird green, like demon projection things. And Punisher's take is that there is no gray area, just black and white, Steve Ditko style. But then Logan's like, I don't know. Our thing is that we have limits. Even if like we go past the limits that Captain America has, we still have some limit. And Mephisto shows up, and Romita draws Mephisto like this giant snake slug with hairs coming out of his saggy breasts. It's really weird. And Mephisto proceeds to eat Blackheart, his son, Cronus style. Here's an ancient Greek mythology reference. And then just teleports all our main characters away. And Danny gets the last laugh, or he gets the last line, as he says, it, essentially paraphrasing, "It doesn't matter if there is an edge, or even if they cross it, as long as they protect innocence." And then that's basically where we end. Danny runs into Wolverine again later with an X-Men crossover. And yeah, that reminded me that we were definitely pre-Midnight Suns. Wolverine and Punisher go directly from this into a crossover miniseries together without Ghost Rider. And then there's a direct sequel to this story with all three of them. Dark Design comes a couple of years later, but no John Romita Jr. on that one. This is kind of like, it was a really hyped up story because John Romita Jr., because these three characters, the whole anti-hero thing. Blackheart was kind of hot in the 90s. After this, he's like a playable character in like Capcom's Marvel Superheroes and Marvel vs. Capcom 2, stuff like that. This is fun. Like, I really like this book. I got Howard Mackey to sign my copy, but it kind of goes all over the place. Like, the structure is not super clear. It feels like it ends really fast. And it's a weird book, but I like it.
Yeah, it's a very weird book, but it's a very fun book, and that's why we chose it. I'll let go back to, I think, one of the first Harrisburg trips you grabbed this, and now the most recent one I grabbed a copy for myself. It's great.
There's like one store that had like 25 copies of this, or something. There's some ridiculous amount of copies of this book.
Yeah.
And I think like all of us bought one copy. So
it's well worth owning. It's well worth the fun. It's John Romita Jr.'s art. It's most creatively, crazy it's gonna get. If I have any detractions about it, yeah, it's a little blocky in some places, but the color is about as perfect as you want. Just the way the light works, it's bouncing off people's faces and shadows. It's all awesome. Though I think if I have anything to detract from it is that his Danny Ketch is the same as Peter Parker. They look the same. Danny's hair is just a little bit more of a mullet, but I've read enough Clone Saga issues with Vince to know that he was giving Pete a pretty good mullet back then too. So it's very indistinguishable. Like if you were to tell me that was Peter Parker, I would have believed you. They look very similar. But I'm also like very surprised at how late into the book Danny becomes Ghost Rider. It isn't essentially until like the third act that Ghost Rider appears on the page, but he's the headline character of this book. It's a very weird deal there, but it's a fun character. Like they're the fun, popular characters of the time. Danny Ketch Ghost Rider was very popular, spinning into his his own team with the Midnight Suns eventually. But then Punisher and John Romita Jr. has drawn a fair amount of Punisher as well, and then also with his time on X-Men, he's drawn Wolverine. So it all makes sense. It all looks great, and it's just dumb comic book fun. That's what you're gonna want. And I'm happy this was our last retro book because of that reason. There's a lot of fun going on here. And yeah, the pacing's a little bit all over the place. You're sprinting to the finish line by the end, but it works. There's definitely lessons to be learned, but also it's fun. And I've said that enough times, but I'll echo it again. That's just a fun comic book, and it's why it's always brought up as one of our favorite things.
Yeah, it's interesting to see his art style here because this is I think almost exactly around this exact same time he was drawing Iron Man during John Byrne's run. So definitely see like some of the faces definitely look familiar, like some of the demonic faces, or like when he's looking down reminds me a lot of like the Mandarin. And I don't know, I just see certain characters in some of these faces like from there. I guess like you said, just going back to how Peter Parker and Danny Ketch look very similar to each other. I feel the same way with the Iron Man characters from this era as well. But no, this is a very good treat and a good excuse to kind of pull this out of my long boxes and give it a read. So,
is anything else to add? Is that all we have to say on Ghost Rider, Wolverine, Punisher, Hearts of Darkness?
I think we covered it. I mean, just to end myself on a semantic note, kind of my whole thing is, you were talking about how, Danny doesn't appear. I more or less, I think this is like probably like around 20 issues into Danny Ketch Ghost Rider. It's pre-Midnight Suns, pre the X-Men crossover with the Jim Lee book. So for some reason, the character just had like so many guest appearances and vice versa, like characters appearing in his book and crossovers and everything like within the first year or two, just like insane. And I actually I'm sure I mentioned it maybe one time in the 120 episodes of the show or whatever, but I for some reason have collected everything Danny Ketch. So I'm saying this with authority that I think this is still they're still, even though he's really hot at this point, they're still investing hard to put over Danny Ketch. So it's who's one of the hottest artists at Marvel, who are two of the hottest characters that this artist has drawn before. So it really just lines up all perfectly. This was Marvel invested heavily in this book, oversized OGN, this one-shot thing. The actual book has a fold-out cover, John Romita Jr. art. It's a really cool book, just to have as well, as a collector, because I think there's Marvel actually put out a collection recently that has this and the sequel Dark Design. But honestly, this one shot, if you find this affordably in a shop one day, or if you go to that shop that has 20 copies, I believe it's Comics and Paperbacks Plus, generally in the Harrisburg area. Definitely pick this up. It's a really cool book to have. And while I was at it, I did quickly pull up John Romita Jr.'s publishing history, and I'm sure this book he may have done ahead of time and between things. he may have worked on this for a long time because it's very long, and then trying to get it all together to put it all out in one. But as far as when this came out, it's in the middle of like his Iron Man run. So Dan was right. And then he does a Cable miniseries, and then he's doing Punisher War Zone around this time as well. So it all kind of lines up.
And with that, we'll go to picks of the week. Final pick of the week, guys. What are you going to choose?
And like always, I forget to think about it before.
Same.
I'm going to give it to Nightwing, I think. Yeah, I think Nightwing with no real competitors. I would say runner-up, probably Flash. But if I'm being totally honest, cheat the system, I would give it to Ghost Rider, Wolverine, Punisher.
Well, that's always been a rule that you can't give it to the retro, but I am going to echo the same thing. It's Nightwing followed by Flash. Usually when Nightwing comes out, it's been the book where it's like, all right, it's going to get the pick. So that leaves Dan, your final pick of the week choice. What is it going to be?
I didn't really love books this week, so that's sad. Going out on a whimper here, but I am going to go with Time Before Time #2.
Okay. It's still a good book. So
yeah, I like it.
And with that, I guess it's the part where we're going to talk about what is next for us. Now, I did a tally for us before we did the show. We've done, if you take into account back when we were on that other channel, we've done 146 episodes, I think, counting this one. And then if you count the 4 specials, that's like 100 and something. I know, 116. Yeah, 116 plus the 4, we're 120. Around 120 something. If you want to go further, count Saga, the Clone Saga, the No Man's Land show, it gets a lot worse, and don't calculate it because you'll give yourself a headache. But I think there's a grind to this, and we all kind of basically, I think was what, last night we were just like, we having fun? Not really. We're all kind of experienced a little thing called burnout, which is what happens when you're talking about weekly books every week. For me, 3 years. For Dan, a year and a half. For Vince, around 2-3 years is me. So with that, we buy way too much stuff at a compulsive rate, and when you look at when you look at 16 to 18 books a week, which is the rundown kind of a ballooned to, it's like, well, when are we going to get to read that stuff? And there is stuff I want to talk about in there, and I know there's stuff that you guys want to talk about in there. So I think we're going to move to something more of a long form content, more of a post-production kind of deal, where we're not going to have like a weekly pod anymore. But I'll hand the reins over to Dan. What exactly was your idea?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So I guess another thing just to clear up too is we're not stopping the weekly show because we hate each other. Quite the contrary, I would say.
I don't know.
I think it's more like Mike said, just to kind of change up the medium, and the approach we're going to take here is just kind of picking out series, storylines, story arcs, stuff in our collection that we're interested in together, and just kind of doing a book of the month, book of the month and a half. We don't want to really commit to like a certain schedule, but just kind of doing, like Mike said, some longer kind of deep dives into a storyline. We've kind of done that in the past a little bit here. We've done Kingdom Come, Pulp, so we obviously enjoyed doing that in the past, but that is kind of the path we're going to take here. So obviously anyone out there who has any suggestions on things we should read, more to you, definitely send them our way. But that's kind of where we're going, and I guess hopefully will allow us to create better content for you guys as well.
Yeah, I think there's another thing too, though, is that like you get to a point where it's like, I think we joked there was no Amazing Spider-Man this week, but it was just like, how many times can we talk about Amazing Spider? Like, especially when a book comes out 3 times a month, it's you run out of things to say. Even with Nightwing, and no disparity, no bad wills to the creators involved. It's a very good book, but after 4 great issues, like you can't, like, what else is there to say other than recapping what happens? And if you haven't read it, it's like you're coming to us. Not that anyone's ever come to us for our opinions for anything, but it's just like you're just praising something endlessly to no end. I'd rather talk about, Vince. We saw each other last week. He handed me Green Lantern Will World, which is a book I haven't read before, but I know about. I'd much rather talk about that for 40 minutes than do an hour 20 talking about the same books and never getting around to getting to Will World. And that's the kind of case about it. I think if we're gonna aim for any goal, and I don't want to like I said, I don't want to commit to anything per se either, but I think one a month is an attainable kind of deal.
Yeah,
maybe that's what we'll aim for. If we get to a point where we maybe can start doing do a couple in the bank where it's like every 2 weeks. I'm not saying we're doing that, but maybe that's something to shoot for if this is what we like to do. But at the same time, I'll look forward to not having to really do editing every single week. That'll keep my sanity intact.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll jump in with my 2 cents. I mean, first of all, to Mike's editing thing, I never edited any of these, so I'm coming from a certain perspective where I kind of just had to read the books and show up and everything like that. But even still,
you barely did that.
Yeah, well,
damn,
a couple times reading books and also showing up, but every once in a while. But that said, like I mean, we've made jokes like, I hate comics, and I'm sure all of us have kind of made that joke, but like it's not that like we hated this or anything. It's just like it's just a different format, and some of it is just like the format of reading comics. And a lot of people, obviously, well, for the majority of the history of comics, you read your books once a week or once a month, depending on the title, and that's how you read comics. But obviously, over the past 25 years. It's a very different era where there's so many different ways to read comics. There's digital, there's collected editions, as you can see in Dan's background, and we reference that a lot. And honestly, like obviously we did this show, but I would say for the 3 of us, more or less beyond this show, the majority of our comics reading and collecting is in graphic novels, collected editions, omnibuses, trade paperbacks, whatever, formats and lines you want to call it. So I think, and also, yeah, it's just burnout and things. And I don't want to take things in like too much of a personal direction, even though like a lot of the people who watch the show, if they watch it all, our subscribers, I'll say, are our friends anyways. But like, honestly, like we've mentioned and we talked about how, we started essentially like a precursor to the show on a different channel. So the 3 of us all met through school. We went to Penn State. Dan was the founder of Marvel Club, and we were all heavily involved with that. We did some DC as well. And obviously you can see we've trained Dan a little bit in that direction. But, we all met through school, and then we don't all live in the same town. And, people are trying to find jobs, and then you get a job, and then, you're distanced, and, there's things like that. And you just honestly, like, we were doing the show basically beforehand. Like we were doing variants of the show in school, like Saga of the Clone Saga and things like that. But really just the entire genesis of like doing this kind of content, especially once we got out of school, was just like a chance to hang out, a chance to talk, an excuse every week and stuff like that. And we've kind of, through technology and other things, and like we referenced, we finally went on another trip, after this pandemic and everything. We found other ways to get that consistent, connection and engage that friendship and not feel like isolated and alone and everything like that. And that combined with like this show, like just the format just kind of wearing down and things like that. I don't know. We just kind of made the decision, like we're just going to flip the table and shake it up. But I do agree. I think I'm excited for, whether certain videos are just 2 of us or all 3 of us, or we bring in some guest stars and everything, which will be much more, doable with this new format, doing it based on books or story arcs, or even we'll pick a random single issue or like a couple single issues. It's not totally off the cards or whatever. Can't think of the right stupid expression of us to like, maybe just like totally randomly, like a year from now, we're like, want to do that old format again? Like maybe we'll do it. Who knows? But I think really it's just some of it is just escaping like the weekly schedule and like the grindy element of it, which we enjoy the comics, but it's just it can become a challenge. And obviously, for Mike who's editing it and everything, that's a whole extra layer on it. And so one thing I would say is for other people who do this and keep doing it and somehow last past 100 episodes, I definitely will commend those people. And especially, if they're able to keep up the energy and keep up the interest and, keep having fun with it. Not that we weren't having fun, sort of, but it's been a really interesting experience. And we're definitely, we like talking about comics, and it's a fun excuse to record it, audio, video, whatever. So there will be more, but we're just switching things up.
Yeah, I would equate it to when the show starts feeling like work on top of work. That's when things stop being fun. Like when Wednesday, Thursday rolls around and show days on Friday and you still got half your books read and you're not really feeling like reading them and you got to will yourself to do it, that's not fun anymore. I think we all had at least a couple of that on different weeks. So there's that for it. But like I said, I much rather look forward to this because I think it provides just like a chance to talk to more like deeper content wise of like, I know Vince, you have your encyclopedic knowledge. I know we've always talked about wanting to do things with like Legends of the Dark Knight. This is now that format to do that, where if we want to just pick a random, arc of Legends of the Dark Knight to talk about, here's the place to do it. We don't have to launch or try to do 2 shows consecutively out of it. Yep. We can really just do whatever we want and whatever. Like I know a while ago I tried to do the animation reviews. Maybe that's something to bring back now here. Like who's to say it's just going to be comics? It could be like Dan doesn't know any of the DC characters. Here's an idea off the top of my head. Let's go through the DCAU. Let's go through Batman all the way through Justice League with you. Let's start getting you caught up and at least to know who past the 7 members of the Justice League are. That's just an idea. I'm not saying we're going to do that, but those are pretty good shows and widely available on a streaming service I have. It would be a pretty fun idea maybe. But I don't know. I'm excited. I'm excited to see what we're going to talk about. I think we'll go on a rotating basis maybe. But also, like Vince said, like I'm not opposed to like if we wanted to go like let's do a retro week for the hell of it because I always thought those were pretty fun. So like maybe one week we just do like it's a retro week, but like another gimmick onto it where y'all pick our books, but we don't tell each other what we're picking. So it's a big surprise, and we can just come with it like, all right, we'll pretend it's June '87. Here's what I would have picked up if I was reading books at this point. Something like that. I'm just spitballing ideas, but I think this is the best course for us to keep our sanity, and I'm excited to see what it brings. So I guess we'll get to the point where we sign off. And normally I said we'll be back next week, but we're not going to be back next week. We'll be back when we're back again. So until then, stay safe and take care, I guess. I feel like that's the way to do this. You guys got anything else? Say it now.
No, just one thing I want to say is, Mike, just want to thank you for everything you've done for this channel. I know this has kind of been your baby more than anyone's, so just kind of want to thank you.
Cool, that means you're editing the new stuff. That's the sign off. That's what I got from that.
There you go.
And I'll thank the couple people who do watch our stuff or skim through our stuff or click on it and then click away. However you're engaging. If you're hearing me now.
If you're leaving a comment about Doomsday Clock when we're not talking about it.
But for those who did watch, whether they're bots or not, thank you. We appreciate it a ton, and maybe we'll see you on our next things. All
right. With that, we'll bid you adieu. Goodbye, everybody.